Welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. On this podcast, we invite you to step into the confessional and get real with the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of leadership. Let's get to it.
Hi, I'm here today with Layci Nelson from Transcend Leadership Collective. Layci, thank you for coming onto this recording today.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
You've presented at camps events in the past, and everybody loved it. And I thought it was time really for, as I'm talking to more and more manufacturers, for them, I wanted them to get to know you. I wanted them to hear your voice. But I'm finding more and more as companies develop, they get to a point where the people part of their business becomes more important than the technology part of their business.
At
camps, we focus so much more on technology. We're interested in AI. We're interested in business development. We're interested in robotics and technology and automation and all the things that are really cool on the factory floor. And then all of a sudden, all of that stuff kind of stops. And I was talking to a very successful business owner who mentioned that their company got to a very high revenue number, and they said they stalled. They didn't know why they stalled.
Yep.
And they said that it took a lot of analysis, a lot of root cause analysis. What's going on here? We're so successful. Things are good. Why are we stalled? And it came down to lack of leadership operating systems within their business.
Yeah.
And they had to go back and reinvest in leadership in their company. So I think we're going to help our camps members and the people who listen to this video kind of get there faster. They don't have to wait till they stall out. And
yes,
as you talked about, it's very costly when you don't have the people side of your business figured out.
Oh, so, extremely. Yeah.
I think it'd be great if I've gotten to know you, but would you share some of your background history? How did you get here?
Absolutely. Okay. Depending on how, I don't want to take up the whole podcast with my backstory, but how did I get into working with organizations? Short version is I earned my degree in social work, psychology, and sociology. Not exactly screaming manufacturing, right? But what I really learned and got my feet wet in early on was workforce development and working with people. At that point in my very early days, I actually did gang intervention and prevention work and helping young people that really wanted to turn their life around, take a different path. What are these second chance opportunities out there for me? What does it look like? And that was getting my feet wet in the industry of workforce development. And I have never left it. It's just taken on multiple flavors over time. So fast forwarding a couple of decades, and I then had my kids and decided I want to take a little break. And at that point, I was in executive seats, and I knew by taking a break from the workforce, it might be a challenge to hop right back in it at that same level. As we all know, things move a million miles an hour. And also during that time, we made a move, and we moved in back to my hometown, which is Yakima, Washington, born and raised, and proud to be from here. Union Gap, technically, very proud to be from here, especially first generation college graduate, I'm even actually a first generation high school graduate on my dad's side. So definitely felt good to come home and be able to reinvest in the community that I was born in. But I had no professional network, and my parents had no professional network for me to plug into because they just lived a very different life than the one that I was leading. And I, after some trial and error and had some, what am I going to do next? I thought, what do I love? What feels like breathing for me? And it was helping people learn how to build teams. When I really got down to it, building teams and doing it in a way and leading in a way that people want to follow was something that I'd replicated over and over again in my own career, and started teaching through workforce development. Through some encouragement from people that know me well, they said, why don't you try it on your own? And in 2015, hung out my shingle, put my shingle out, and started Transcend Leadership Collective, which back then was called Nelson Management Strategies. And then really over the last decade have built it into what it is today, which is a network of trainers and staff, and we're all out here doing our best to create the training and the information and the skill set that people need, and the scaffoldings and structures that people need to have in place to be worthy of being followed. Because we really truly believe that every single individual deserves the opportunity to wake up every day and go to work and be motivated, engaged, and inspired. And every person who is leading that group deserves the opportunity to learn the skills to do that, because we're not born with them. So that was a very large nutshell. What else can I share with you?
That was a great nutshell. But one of the key words, you and I were talking about, what do people pay attention to? But when you said scaffolding and structure, that told me that this is where it leaves the world of theory and becomes practical. And that's what I've always appreciated about you, is you bring things into the practical. And even in the workshop that you've done for camps in the past, you had practical exercises where I think we had our eyes open. It wasn't just theoretical of here's some good ideas, but you actually bring it down to an operational system for businesses. And I think that's very valuable and very powerful. And I'll mention that I just was on a tour of a very exceptionally large manufacturing company that it's not one that we typically think of in the Northwest, but they were over 2,000 employees. They were huge, but they did everything so well, but they had totally invested in the kind of things that you're talking about.
Yep.
And they mentioned this is deliberate, this is on purpose, but we had to invest. Their investments in people are extraordinary, but they said the same things as you. So we want everybody to have work that they enjoy. We want them to grow in their development. They had tuition reimbursement programs, and they said we want every employee to be able to afford a home here in Washington State. And so those type of things are really meaningful. But what you said about we want to create a meaningful work environment for employees, and if you don't have that commitment, you're going to struggle way down the road. It's going to be painful down the road. So I think what you're advocating is the right thing for all of us. So one of the things I've learned about your presentations, you have many topics that are very helpful, but you have this heart-first approach.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to share that heart-first approach.
Absolutely. So HHART-First Leadership really is it's my baby. It is what the entire company is founded on. It is the underpinning of everything. And just a little backstory how we formed it before I unpack it for you is I spent a long time studying the longitudinal studies as well as the articles about the topic of why does leadership development suck so bad? So they didn't use those scientific terms, but it's not usually effective. Most leadership development doesn't get you your money back. There is not a measurable ROI on it, which is unfortunate. And so I wanted to dig into why is that, and then do everything in my power to build a company that would provide the opposite experience. So the last thing I want to do is ask anyone to invest $1 into something that isn't going to have a return for them or even cost them money. We are very cognizant that when we step into a manufacturing plant and we are training, that we are not only costing the fee that we charge to come in, but the alteration of production schedules or even just paying people overtime, however they swing it, that costs money too. So it better be worth it. And so HHART-First Leadership was born out of that desire to figure out what's the missing piece between those, why don't those great leadership programs stick? And because there's a lot of them that do have really good, solid core principles and even some tactile, this is how you do it. But they were missing the heart component, which in our world, heart is HHART. So everyone's definitely, any organization I've ever been in can speak to the fact that yes, maybe they're not sure what they are, but they know they're supposed to have core values, a vision, a mission. They understand that. And those are important, but that's usually where the quote unquote softer side stops. And also where a major amount of communication is focused and training is making sure everyone understands what the mission and vision is. What they give almost very little, if any time to is the skill set that underpins making all of that happen, which is honest communication, understanding how to have healthy conflict, and how to build cultures of acceptance, respect, and trust. And those are what are at the core. If you look at Google's Aristotle study, you look at the literature from Harvard Business Review, from different different manufacturing publications, they will tell you that you are going to hit the ceiling with all of your systems, all of your vision, all of your mission. Where do organizations get stuck? It's only as valuable, your systems are only as valuable as your people's ability to communicate effectively in an environment where people have psychological safety, acceptance, respect, and trust. That's the differentiator. And so my background in psychology, sociology, and social work led me to go, those are skill sets. We think people are born with those. They're not. They're actually skills that we can learn. And that was the jumping off point for really where Transcend started to take off. It's when I changed the name from Nelson Management Strategies to Transcend, was when that framework of what are those skills. And now we've identified 48 hard, tangible skills that bring to life what is required to have HHART-First leadership in your organization.
That is really wonderful. And I think there's a certain point in businesses where you think you can do it by grit. You and I talked about, I could push through and we have problems. And if somebody doesn't work out, we can just replace them. However, skilled labor is getting harder now. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to find. And the investment that it takes to find top talent and keep top talent is even more expensive. So if you don't have these things that you've just talked about, you're really costing your company money and time. You're slowing things down.
Absolutely.
So I value what you bring to the table. The fact that you said that it's ROI focused, 48 core skills. And when you talk about, I think I've been the recipient of so much leadership training that didn't have that underpinning core skills. And so I can only imagine the experience you had. I don't know if you could talk to us about some of the companies, and maybe not by name, but what's been their experience as they've implemented this HHART-First system and the other things that you've helped them do? Just what have you noticed with these companies? Because I know you have long-term engagements. They're not just you go speak somewhere and you never see them again. You have long-term engagements.
Yes, we have some organizations that we've been with for 5+ years and others that will come in for 1 to 2, but we're with them for a while. Absolutely. And it's such a privilege to get that front seat and watch them grow. It's so exciting. First of all, maybe I should state, when companies call us, 9 times out of 10, they don't say, I need leadership training. That's not what they lead with. That's not the pain point as they've identified it, right? So how does it show up? What is going on? What are the operating effects? It looks like issues and priorities and ideas that people are afraid to challenge and speak up because there's just a culture where that has negative consequences and I'm not going to say anything. So what do we see when that starts to get fixed? What are the results we're seeing? We're seeing that problems surface earlier. We're seeing quality. We're starting to track QC, making some changes, getting better. They're seeing less things come through the line because people are speaking up earlier. We're seeing that there's just a reduction overall of silent failures because people are really learning how to communicate. It looks like crystal clear expectations. It looks like next steps are stated clearly. Simple things that are simple, but they're not easy, like shift handoffs, have maybe 2 more minutes added to a shift handoff with a 20% increase in productivity that day because the shift handoff was done well. And so really those communication skills and understanding that standards can stay high without humiliation. You also can identify the impact of dehumanizing behavior and what does it look like? And those are the reasons people leave work environments. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, people leave somewhere because they don't like their supervisor. It is their boss, they feel like my boss doesn't do anything to protect me and I have this horrible work environment. And so these are the things that we help organizations to identify and then have immediate action plans and skill building. And all of us have pockets in our organization that have room for improvement in these areas. So when they call us, they're usually calling us because they've got QC issues have gone through the roof, or they've got turnover that is just, they're telling them themselves the story. This is just how it is for everyone. And it's not, by the way, just how it is for everyone, but we tell ourselves the story to make us feel better. And they really are, or they're feeling their revenue has just been stuck and they can't bust through that ceiling to the next level. And so we ask a ton of questions, go through a diagnostic process, figure out the best point of entry with that HHART-First system that we bring to the table, and then we get to work.
I have to thank you because you've brought up the things that we see all of the time. And I have a more simplistic explanation. But what you said about silent failures was really true. And sometimes punishing or humiliating work environments where I can't speak up or I can't. We see problems on the manufacturing floor. They hire a consultant who comes in and says, you have these problems. Now, the employees knew it the whole time, wouldn't say anything, right?
Yes.
And now this is my very poor explanation. I think you explained it so much better, but I think of it as seat of the pants management.
Yes.
And I'm making it up as I go, and I'm in a reactive mode because my plan for today went wrong. And now my hair's on fire, and now I've got to put this out, but I'm in a reactive mode. And all you described was a proactive mode. You're thinking ahead, the shift handoff. I'm adding a few more minutes into the shift handoff to get a 20% better productivity, but that's all. It's premeditated, it's deliberate, and you're thinking ahead instead of just making it up on the fly.
Correct. That is, yes, we are all about, we call it intentionality. Do we want to be responsive or reactive? Do we want to respond with intention when things don't go as expected, which is a lot, or do we want to just react, as you said, and make it up on the fly? And part of that comes with the individual and the side of development of your leaders, where they're going to develop the skills of self-regulation, which sounds, if you're not familiar with it, that sounds a little woo-woo, but it is actually neuroscience. It is the neuroscience of what happens when we get stressed out is our ability to collaborate and think creatively shuts down and we go into reactive phase. And just plain knowing that and giving yourself a second to breathe and choose your response can make a big difference. So we help individuals identify and understand themselves and recognize what it looks like for them when they start to go offline and how to turn it back on, how to switch that frontal cortex back on. It's neuroscience. We teach regulation skills. And also, so we approach two sides of the same coin. One side is the people side of the coin of performance, and the other side of the coin of performance is the scaffolding and the structures and the operating systems on the planning side that need to be in place so people understand how to differentiate between urgent and important. And so what we do is when we work with organizations, usually those engagements that last a long time, is they've said, we're all in. We want to invest in the full performance system. We want all of it. We want you to work with our people and work on those communication HHART-First skills that happen in the individual and team component. And we also want you to work with us on the enterprise level, where you're helping us with our strategic planning and the scaffolding and the structures of implementation, which is where the magic happens. Most organizations have some form of strategic plan or an annual plan every year. What they don't typically have are the scalable and repeatable structures to every single quarter identify what are the most important things in the annual plan right now that my team, my department, what are we focusing on? Where do we put our energy? Do we want to be the sun, which is great? The sun is beautiful, it's bright, but it's very diffuse. It's why we can go outside and not get cut in half, unlike a laser, where it is taking all of that energy and really focusing that energy. And so when we are working with teams, we give them the scaffolding and the structures and the systems for their leadership teams across their departments to take that energy and really focus it so that everybody can get on the same page about what are the most important themes we're focusing on this year and this quarter. What is my department charged with in bringing it to life, and that is going to help people understand, is this important or really important, or is this just urgent? Because it's going to elicit a different chosen response from you, depending on where it falls in the understanding of what the priorities are. And we also really push, because especially companies that this is a new system for them, they want everything to be equally important. But we have to remind them, when everything's important, what's actually important? Nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's not only do we offer these systems, we offer that very skilled key facilitation to come in and help them implement those systems and hold them to a standard and ask really hard questions. We often also get mistaken with strategic consultants. That's not what we are. I have no idea how to run your shop. I do not know how to run a manufacturing floor, but I know that you do. And so if I'm working with you, what we bring is the ability to pull that knowledge out, put it into a framework, systematize it, make it repeatable, ask the questions to push to get to the right goals, to help you figure out, where does your focus need to be? I come in with no figurative agenda of where I want you to land. I come in with the commitment that myself, my team, we're going to push, we're going to ask the right questions. We're going to have these expectations for communication at a HHART-First level that's happening in this leadership team to fill out the scaffolding, to put the meat on the bones. Our expertise is the scaffolding and the facilitation. And then we take your expertise and marry the two together.
That's wonderful. You earlier talked about and showed me an image.
Yes.
That is not ready for development, but you were kind enough to be willing to show us a pre-published version. But I really liked it. I thought it would help those watching this to appreciate what you have and how it fits into their world. So
absolutely. Yeah, let me pull that up for us. My graphics person, I'm going to be in big trouble for this, but I will share this image with you. This is just an AI rendering. We're working on it. And this is going to be much more ready for public consumption in the coming year. But this is where we're at in learning to continue to refine and talk about what we do with manufacturers. And we really do provide a manufacturing performance accelerator. Again, the two sides of that coin of performance and having a world-class team are the people skills, the heart first, what we often think of as the soft skills, which, as we've already established, no, they're actually hard skills, and there's 48 of them. But across the bottom, those skills that are required for honest communication, healthy conflict, acceptance, respect, and trust, that sits at the underpinning in the center of everything that we do. And we take that flywheel of innovation, which you'll see that there in that triangle with heart at the center of, it really starts with, you want an innovative team, which is the answer should be yes for every single one of us. And so if you want an innovative team and your team feels stuck, it's often stuck because they are missing one of the components for innovation. And that is where we take a look at capacity expansion and leadership stability. And that happens through, again, looking at what is that performance, what is that scaffolding, that system that you're using to align everybody in your organization, and is it underpinned with the ability to have the real conversations? And when you bring those two together, that is where the magic happens. It is in having both. You can have an operating system, but if your people can't talk to each other effectively because they're lacking the skill set required to do that, or there needs to be a culture shift, but no one knows how to actually have a culture shift happen besides saying we need a culture shift. There's real ways to do that. Happens at the heart level. But you have the best operating system, you're never going to maximize the value of that operating system, that tactical operating system that you have. And the reverse is, you can have people that are extremely effective communicators. But if you don't have a scaffolding to hang and organize everything on and understand what the most important things are and how to bring the right players to the table for that conversation, how to measure the outcomes, how to have an effective scorecard that you're keeping track of, how to understand who's ultimately accountable, responsible to what. If you're lacking that piece, it feels like happy chaos. And neither is wonderful. And happy
Right.
chaos turns into not happy chaos real quick.
Yes.
So having both at play is really what we bring to the table, is helping manufacturers understand. We come in, we diagnose, and we say, where's the best starting point? What's going to move the needle the fastest? We'll triage, and then we're going to make out and build a plan with you to onboard this performance accelerator into your organization. And our dream is, after 1-2 years, not one, usually it's 2+ years of the full meal deal, we are starting to step away and hand it fully over to you. That is our hope.
That's powerful.
And yeah.
That's very powerful. Now, you have been very kind in the past to share with me. You have a very impressive client list, and I'm not asking for names at this point, but what do you see in the progression over time as they implement these ideas like this innovation flywheel, this HHART-First skills that you've talked about, and then this alignment to the strategy and the goals? And I don't know, what have you seen in the companies that have implemented this?
I can approach it from two different angles. We get to talk about it from the supervisor communication side of what have I seen, and then also from the planning and execution, more of that scaffolding, that performance accelerator operating system side of what have I seen, what have we seen on my team. And so one of the organizations, and both of these organizations are very well known, but I always respect the confidentiality of my clients. And if you want to see the full list, you can go on to our website, but I'm going to change names to protect the guilty, right? So one of the organizations that we were working with, they had a very common problem on the floor of perceived favoritism. There was just a rampant feeling that some people were getting special treatment in the organization, and it wasn't clear to them why there were certain people that were getting promoted into shift leader positions or into management positions, and other people were not. And it became very clear that what originally looked like a problem with a bunch of individuals was really a problem with the system.
Yeah.
And through that communication and some training, and part of our process of working with an organization is we interview the frontline before we build out the training. So we did some focus groups with the frontline, smoked out the issues, and actually asked the people that are going to be impacted the most what they think their bosses need to know. And boy, did they talk. When you get them in a room and you're not recording anything, I don't even ask their names, and I tell them up front, I'm not asking your name because I want you to believe I will have no idea how to tell people what you told me today. We really get the goods. And it became very clear that no one in this organization that we had in the focus group, at least, understood why what were the qualities people were looking for in leaders. They had no idea how you qualified for a promotion. So it was a systems problem, and they thought all these people were just playing favorites. They were looking for certain qualities, but the qualities, once we did the work and pulled it out of the leadership group we were working with, they were consistent, but it was invisible. The rules were invisible. And so it actually wasn't favoritism that was the problem. It was the perception of favoritism because they were operating off of an invisible playbook. And so we took that invisible playbook and made it visible by creating with that group a matrix of skills, and they were ranked, and some of them were ranked as non-negotiable. And they were weighted so that they had an extremely tangible tool that they then took through this whole company, which is vertically integrated. They took it through the whole company, and then now have one standard for this is what it takes to be a leader. This is how we measure it. This is how it ties back to our core values. Wow. And this is what the behavior looks like when it's happening. And this is what it looks like when it's not happening. And the complaints of favoritism after that was introduced almost disappeared.
Yeah, I bet it did. But it probably had so many other positive effects on the company. Can't even imagine. Yeah.
They started using it in their performance reviews. People were now told very pointedly, this is exactly the behavior that I want to see, that I'm not seeing. And it takes the personal out of it as well.
Yeah, I love it. You do a lot of podcasts. I feel honored that you're willing to come on here and do this recording with me because you do so many. You have your own podcast, you've got your website. So if somebody wants to figure you out and understand where you're at, of course, we want to get them started on your website. How do they find your website?
It's the longest website in the world, but transcendleadershipcollective.com is where you can find us. And please do come find us. And then also, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, which is Layci Nelson, Layci, that's the trick. I think there's 3 of us with that spelling on all of LinkedIn. So Layci Nelson on LinkedIn, Layci.
Yeah.
And then you can also access everything from there. And please reach out. Tell me you heard this and you're interested. It was interesting. I will not launch into a hard sell. I promise. I just want to know you. So say hello.
I agree with you, Layci. You've been so good. You're also involved in the Women in Manufacturing organization.
I am.
Maybe several others I don't know about. But when she talks about manufacturing, she's really authentically involved in manufacturing, the Women in Manufacturing organization. She's spoken to our camps events. My conversations with you are always fascinating and engaging. And when she says she wants to get to know you, that is very true. So I recommend that you check out her website, check out her podcast, check out connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yes.
And then I'm also a conduit. So if you connect with me, I'll get you connected to Layci. But I think it would be really cool to have companies who are applying this HHART-First methodology, get your systems, processes, but don't let the friction and the resistance that builds up over time, if we don't have this in place, can really slow a company down, and we want to speed you up. Yes. So Layci, I want to say thank you for this engaging and informative and inspiring and conversation. I think this was very meaningful for everybody who listens.
Thank you, Kirk. You're very generous in your accolades, and I appreciate that. Thank you. Camps is really a fantastic organization. We are proud at Transcend to be affiliated. You're sponsoring a WIM event. Camps is right in there in the heart of it, and the vision you have as a group for manufacturing in our region is nothing short of inspiring. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, Layci.
Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. If you're feeling brave and have your own terrible leader story that you'd like to share, head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com/podcast to fill out a guest application. We'd love to hear from you. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced and edited by Fixation Point Productions. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is a free leadership resource offered by Transcend Leadership Collective. If you are ready to refuse the limits of average leadership and join the leadership revolution, visit transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our offerings for engaging workshops, strategic planning, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.